guys, my name's Jen, and I'm so excited that you've chosen to join us online today. I believe you will be encouraged today as a result. If this is your first time joining us, I'd like to give a special shout out to you. If you would, text the word FIRST to the number on the screen. We'd love to send you a gift card for a coffee on us. Thanks again for joining us today. Excited for what God has in store. Let's dive in.
Hey, what's up? My name is Chris Highfield, lead pastor here at Grace River Church. I want to say thank you so much for watching online at home today. Hope that you're having a great week, and I hope my prayer for you is that you take a next step on your spiritual journey as you meet, know, and follow Jesus. Right now, we're in the middle of an initiative called Generations, and so our church is expanding, and super exciting stuff is happening. Man, we're running out of parking. We're running out of auditorium space, we're running out of kids space. And so we're doing this initiative to raise $1.2 million so more people can meet, know, and follow Jesus. That's our initiative. That's our mission as a church, is to see more people accept Christ. And so I've got great news to let you know about. And so as of today, as of this recording, man, we are able to see that we've reached 79% of our goal. We have $951,000 and some change pledged towards this initiative. And I can't wait to see what God does over the next week or so. We're going to accomplish this goal. My number one goal is that 100% of people that call Grace River Church their home contribute to this initiative. And so it's a 2-year pledge that we're making as a church family together. We've seen over 100 people make pledges so far, which is awesome. And I can't wait to see what God does next with this big initiative. And so thanks for watching online today. Today, we're talking about how your life can make a difference. And so how your life can make a difference. So it's really exciting. So one of the things that I'm asking people to do is to think through what their commitment level could be. You can learn more about how to make a commitment by going online at graceriver.cc/generations. That's graceriver.cc/generations. So we got here because there was a group of people that sacrificed to help get us in the building that we're in today. And now we're outgrowing this space. But as we talk about how to make a difference with your life, I thought we would start with this short video that we've put together. And it's really a video really about people that helped start Grace River and some lives that have been impacted as a result of it. So check this video out. Hey, I want to say thank you guys for being a part of the beginning of Grace River Church. I think that if we're honest, a few of you may have been reluctant, right? You know, from my living room to an elementary school to the YMCA, and just thank you for everything that you've done. And I thought we'd take some time and kind of share some quick stories about what it was like in the beginning. You know, Kathy, you were one of the first people to invite somebody to church, and you invited Jen and Brian. You guys were neighbors. And can you speak to that for a moment? Just like what it was like to invite somebody and see them show up?
Yeah, it was amazing. I said, hey, I'm going to this new church. Come with me and check it out.
Yeah, I'm really glad you did. And,
Me too.
and you guys are still friends, and we still attend the same church together all these years later. And it's wild because, you know, you invited Jen, and then Jen's invited her friends and her new neighbors, which is just crazy to think about. And so, Sarah, you put up with me from the beginning. Thank you. And I don't know, you've done everything at our church, from kids ministry to set up and tear down. You've done it all, and I'm just really grateful for your commitment to this place. What have you seen over the years that's impacted you?
It's amazing to see like all the different people that God has brought. I love watching people that don't know Jesus, like to want to be a part of something. Like they want to help, and they, you know, like I remember talking to people like, I don't know anything about the Bible, and it's okay. Like God just wants your heart, and to see them start to serve and like welcome people, and they're so proud of it. It's really encouraging.
Yeah. Brian and Jen, you guys were invited by your neighbor Kathy, and you just kept coming. And maybe speak to that first weekend. I kind of remember a piece of this story, and you were invited by Kathy, and you were a little reluctant, I think, based off the story. So
I don't want to be part of a church plan. In my mind, I had pictured we're going to walk in and it's going to be like Pigpen style for kids, all crammed in a corner with a gate around them. And when we walked in, it was small, but it was so welcoming and organized. And we had the little keychain thing to check our kids in. I'd never seen anything like it. And as we're leaving, Brian's like, he loved it. And I'm like, I really did. And then Noah and Lydia loved it. And so kind of after that, we were just kind of hooked.
It's cool to see so many people maturing in their walk with the Lord and volunteering and doing whatever needs to be done, and people that maybe don't have something to do, but they just jump in somewhere and they decide, hey, I'm going to volunteer, kids check in or greeter or whatever. Now we got parking lot people, and just, which is really cool to see all the growth in everybody.
Yeah. In Barrett recently, there was a dude in your small group that got baptized, and he was like Ralph, a guy that you would never expect to take that step. And I heard a meeting and staff report about you being just so pumped about it. Kind of describe some of that.
It's exciting with him and several others that come from not going to church or haven't gone to church for a while, or whatever, and then come and experience something different and come to know Jesus. And that's just so awesome to see that. And that was the case for him, to see the change just at that small group when you could kind of tell that he didn't want to be there. And then, for him to then, come to know Jesus and have an active relationship with Christ.
Man, it's just wild to think about what's next. Not just like what he's done. It's amazing thinking about where we came from and what's happened, what God has done, how he's provided. It's also crazy to think about what God's doing right now, really even since we moved into this building. And it's mostly every weekend, someone will walk up to me after church, or I'll get an email and they'll say, thanks for starting Grace River. Thanks for creating a place for me to take a next step. And what I wish is that you could hear from them. And so I actually figured out, well, maybe we can. And so I actually invited some of them to come and just say thank you to you today. And so they're here today just to say thanks to you for providing a place for them to take a next step so they could meet, know, and follow Jesus. And it's unbelievable. This is just a few of them over the years that have said yes to him, or even in the last few months, some of these people. And I just kind of wanted to give them a chance to say thank you to you for being a part of this from the start. It started with you. We're going to start with Chris, actually, because Chris is the first person that said yes to Jesus in this building, which is just really cool. It was the first, I think it was the first day here, which is crazy. So, yeah.
Not only has my life been transformed, but my entire family's life has been transformed. I walked into this, I didn't even want to be a Christian. I persecuted Christians, I did. And here I am today in a place where everybody can just feel like they belong. And I just thank you so much, honestly.
I'm Jody. Before Grace River, completely lost, broken, not knowing who I was or what I wanted to do with my life, and grieving the loss of my son Liam, who was stillborn at 34 weeks. I contemplated suicide. I had nothing left. I had no purpose, nothing. A year later, I lost a daughter. And so again, just completely nothing left to live for. A year later, I actually had my rainbow baby, Aiden, and a friend of mine actually invited me to church. And at that point, I pulled up to the YMCA where she was getting baptized. And since then, I continue to show up every week. And now, through Grace River, I have gone through directions. The discipleship, I am open with my faith to everybody. And before Grace River, I didn't think that, church was for us. We weren't church people. You guys have saved my life. You've saved my husband's life. So thank you.
I'm Amanda. God sought me out with a new neighbor 7 years ago. Jen and Brian Hecht. And Jen fulfilled God's request to love thy neighbor as thyself, and does every single day. And just by laying on the pool chair and having natural conversation, God came up and God kept coming up. It was the 1-year anniversary of being in this building that I came finally to church with Jen. That it wasn't just Jen doing what she needed to do to bring somebody to Jesus, but God said, I'm here, and sought me out in that form as well. She's been also my first real friend, the first person that ever accepted me, that made me realize that it was okay to not be okay, and that there's someone else who has me. God's got me, and God's got this. And my life is forever changed.
Man, I love stories like that. I mean, you think about just those 3 stories of life change that we looked at, but I also just think, man, all of the lives that are being forever changed, forever impacted here at Grace River. And it started with a handful of people, and now we are what we are today. And man, we're only getting started. For all we've seen, we haven't seen anything yet, right? And so we're going to jump into this passage in 2 Corinthians chapter 8 that really talks about how you and I can make a difference with our lives. Follow along with me, 2 Corinthians 8, verse 1. Now, again, Paul wrote this letter to the church in Corinth. He writes this letter, and he's using the example of the believers that were in Macedonia and just how they were extravagant when it came to their giving. That they decided that their lives were not their own, that God had given them everything they had, that they were the owners of nothing but the managers of everything. So I want you to know, dear brothers and sisters, what God in His kindness has done through the churches in Macedonia. So it's God who did it, but man, look at what God did through these people. Then in verse 2, they are being tested by many troubles and they are very poor. So these people were generous, but yet they still had problems and they had poverty. I mean, really 2 things here that I think sometimes when we think about people that are generous, I often think generous people must be people that have lots of means. They must have lots of stuff. And what you come to find out, really, this Macedonian believers, they were tested with troubles, like they had problems, and they were very poor. And so problems and poverty, but they are also filled with abundant joy, which is overflowing in rich generosity. So they're full of joy, overflowing in rich generosity. For I can testify that they gave not only what they could afford, but far more. They gave beyond their budgets, and they did it out of their own free will. They begged us again and again for the privilege of sharing in the gift of the believers in Jerusalem. So man, they were extravagant with their giving. Even though they couldn't afford to give, they still gave. I mean, these are people that recognize that clearly God was in charge of their lives. Then in verse 5, they even did more than we had ever hoped, for their first action was to give of themselves to the Lord and us, just as God wanted them to do. And so they gave to God first and then to themselves. And it just showed a priority about, like, man, clearly we could all say that God's a priority in our lives. But for these Macedonian believers, it's pretty clear they would say that God was number 1 for them. Then in verse 6, so we have urged Titus, who encouraged your giving in the first place, to return to you and encourage you to finish this ministry of giving. And so this idea that we should give, that we should excel in giving, and that's really in verse 7. Since you excel in so many ways in your faith, your gifted speakers, your knowledge, your enthusiasm, and your love for us, I want you to excel also in the gracious act of giving, that we would excel in that. I mean, when you think about excelling in something, it just means that we're going to be excellent in that. Now, there are these other areas that we grow in. So we grow in our faith, and then we're gifted in our speaking, in our communication, in the knowledge that we have about God, in our enthusiasm, in your love for other people and your love for God. And then this last piece, which I think is just so important, this last piece is excelling in the area of giving. Jesus himself talks about this in Matthew chapter 6, verse 19. He says, don't store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Pretend like for a moment that you are a northerner during the Civil War living in the South. You're a northerner living in the South. Now, what's interesting about the Civil War is in the North and the South, they actually had separate currency during this time period. But you're a Northerner living somehow in the South, and you have a ton of Southern currency that you have at your disposal, and you could do whatever you want with this Southern currency. But you know this, the war is about to end, and that Southern currency is going to be worth nothing. Now, what would you do in that situation? In that situation, here's what I would do, and what most logic would tell you to do, is that you would take as little of that as possible to live off of, that Southern currency, knowing that the war is about to end and knowing that currency is going to be worth absolutely nothing. And then what you would do is you would exchange the rest of that currency for currency that's going to matter later, because the Northern currency is what's going to be later known as American currency. So this is what this is going to be from then until what it is today, right now, currently. And so what you would do is you would live on as little bit of that Southern currency as possible, but then you would trade in the Southern currency for the Northern currency, knowing that is what's going to be of value. And here's the thing. Today, you and I live here, right? And we have the currency that we have that's just temporary. But man, there's a currency that we can exchange, this Southern currency, this earthly currency, for this heavenly currency. So what Jesus is saying is store up your treasure in heaven. Don't make your pile bigger here. Make your pile bigger there. And the way that you can do that is by making a difference with your life, deciding that I'm not just going to add to my pile here, but I'm going to give back to God, and I'm going to invest my resources in things that are going to make a difference in somebody's forever. And so making a difference really requires 4 things. The first thing it requires is faith. And so making a difference, he says this in that opening passage, he says, since you excel in so many ways in your faith. It starts with us trusting God and saying, God, you have it all, right? You own it all. And faith requires that. If I'm going to make a difference with my life, I can't run my life the way that I want to run it if I want to make a difference with my life. So I can make excuses or I can make a difference, but I can't do both. It's going to require faith. It's also going to require sacrifice. I mean, for all of us, if I'm going to make a difference with my life, it means that I'm going to have to give up what I want. That's what it's going to require. And so 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 15 says, He died for everyone so that those who receive His new life will no longer live, this is key, will no longer live for themselves. Instead, they will live for Christ, who died and who was raised for them. Jesus is the example of sacrifice. See, He died, that was Jesus, for everyone, so that those who receive His new life will no longer live for themselves. It's an example that we're not going to live for us. Instead, they will live for Christ. So we just follow His sacrifice. So making a difference is going to require living like Jesus. He sacrificed, we should sacrifice. The third thing is as generosity. See, all the believers were united in Acts chapter 4. All the believers were united in heart and in mind, and they felt that what they owned was not their own. Man, they were able to live a generous life. They were able to make a difference with their life because they didn't have a hard grip on everything that they had. They recognized that what they had was not their own. And if you want to make a difference with your life, I think you really have to look at what you have and go, this is all a gift from God. Like He's given me all of it. The fourth thing is that if you want to make a difference with your life, it's going to require some urgency. In Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15, Paul says, so be careful how you live. Don't live like fools, but like those who are wise. Make the most of every opportunity in these evil days. And so you got to make the most of every opportunity, man. Understand this. You and I aren't here forever. There needs to be an urgency to what we're doing. There's an urgency to see more people meet, know, and follow Jesus. This isn't something that can wait 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. This is something that requires urgency because there are people that live in our community that don't know Jesus yet. And we've got a job to do, and it's going to require urgency to get that job done. We can't sit back on our heels and go, man, look at what God has given us and just kind of relax and call it good and say, man, we built a church and that's awesome. But we got to push forward and go, okay, the mission continues. We're just getting started. For all we've seen, we truly haven't seen anything yet. And so there has to be an urgency for us to push the mission forward to see more people meet, know, and follow Jesus. So making a difference really is going to require 4 things. It's going to require faith, it's going to require sacrifice, it's going to require generosity, and it's going to require urgency. And my hope for you is that you take this seriously and go, man, I want to make a difference with my life. I know this. Everyone listening right now would say, I want to live a life of significance. I want to live a life where my life makes a difference. And my encouragement to you is that you can't do that living for yourself. You can't do that by making your pile bigger. The way that you do that is by trusting God in faith, by following the example of Jesus and sacrificing, by living a generous life and saying, man, I'm the owner of nothing but the manager of everything, and living urgently to say, man, we don't have forever. We got this one life, and with this one life that we have, we're going to do everything we can to bring as many people to heaven with us as we can. I can't save someone myself, but I can communicate the good news to them. I saw it said the other day, the only thing you can take to heaven is other people with you. And I think that's pretty amazing to think about. Like, let's take the currency we have and exchange it for a heavenly currency and see what God will do with it. I'm going to pray for you. And my hope is that you take one of these next steps, or maybe all four of them, to say, I'm going to trust God with my life, with my finances, with my resources, so more people can meet, know, and follow him. Let me pray for you. Father, we're grateful, God, that someone shared the good news with us. And so now we have this great opportunity to share the good news with others and to take everything that you've given us and trust you with it. And God, I know you're going to do some amazing things in the life of our church through this initiative. I pray for those that are listening right now that maybe they haven't made a pledge yet. I pray that today they would. God, that today they would say, we trust you with the future. And God, for the next 2 years, I pray that you would do an amazing work in the life of our church as a result of our church family trusting you. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. Well, hey, I want to say thank you so much for watching online today. I want to encourage you to join us in person next Sunday, December 10th, as we celebrate this initiative. And I know that we're going to meet our goal. It's going to be amazing, but we'll get together. We'll celebrate that number. And I can't wait to see you in person this Sunday at Grace River Church. God bless. Have a great day.
I hope that you were encouraged by what you heard today. Here at Grace River, we believe that it's important to give back to the God who gave us everything. If you feel inclined to give, I'd like to give you that opportunity now. You can do so by texting Grace River to the number on the screen. Lastly, I'd like to personally invite you to one of our 3 in-person services every Sunday at 8:30, 9:45, and 11 a.m. That's it for today. We hope to see you soon.